Hey guys, what's up? It's Dan Weinberger here, CEO of Morpheus.Network, with another AMA for the community. This is a good list of questions over here. I'm glad we got these questions out. I always thank the community for these amazing questions. I love seeing the interest in the project as we continue to grow and build towards sustainable revenue and so on and so forth. So, without further ado, let's get to these great questions, guys. Okay. Thanks for taking some time for this AMA again, Dan. Is there a possibility to plan down the track to have some form of dashboard where the number of transactions and pings are being recorded? Yeah, this is a great question. We've had this question before. It is not currently in our focus. Right now, we're obviously very much buried in the process of contracts, implementations, different various levels of sales cycles. And real company transactions is definitely something that would be cool down the line. One thing that I will say about transactions as well on a ticker is not necessarily a metric, a good KPI metric of where we are as a company. Transactions don't necessarily equate to how much revenue we're making as well. So more importantly, right now it's working with our clients, getting down to revenue, and at the right time, a dashboard for the community would be very cool to do. So, all right, thank you. With an AMA over a year ago, 8 pilots were on the go. How many of those have gone to full implementation? Great question. Now, we get a lot of questions about pilots. I see there's, just scrolling through the questions quickly here. I see there's a couple questions about how many pilots we've had in total, which I've mentioned in the past, as well as we've grown it out to a couple dozen pilots that have gone really well. Every single pilot has been successful. So when we run a pilot, we want to test out the technology, make sure that we're, doing something that's going to work properly for companies and be useful down the line. We don't want to work with a company doing a full implementation, and then realizing that the technology isn't working in a certain way, and we haven't, battle tested that technology itself. So every single pilot has been successful. A couple of the pilots have actually gone to implementation. I'm actually very excited to announce that one of the implementations is a full transformation. It's been in the works for over a year now. So excited to get that marketing out for you and announce it with the CEO of that company. Another company as well that we've been talking to, and this one, we've been working very hard on. It's been sort of a concentrated team effort. Reason being is that timing is very crucial for them, which is fantastic for us. It means they want to expedite the whole process. This company, it is a Canadian company, makes revenue of over $10 billion annually. And we have an agreement, a handshake agreement, a verbal agreement with them to do a document handling system implementation. Something we've been working on obviously very hard, as I mentioned. Very proud of the team and Noam specifically, who's been putting a lot of work on that as well. So yeah, if any other questions about specifically the pilots, and what's going on with them, and how they've been sort of working out. It's important as well to know that certain pilots are in places in the world that we're not roadmapped to implement for this year necessarily. So it doesn't mean that these parts of the world aren't hotbeds for global trade and aren't in our sight lines down the line. So getting those initial steps within those countries, working with these companies, testing the technology as well, is really a fantastic thing that we've done. And we're going to move ahead, obviously, with growing out over the next couple of years. So yeah, great questions on the pilots. I really do appreciate that. Next question here is, how is the tracking against the roadmap going? It's going extremely well. There's definitely some projects that we're working on right now that I didn't have in our initial roadmap, obviously, and didn't calculate for that. And when you're working with a company that's worth, let's say doing $30 million of revenue in a year versus a company that's doing $30 billion of revenue in a year, it's tough to gauge really with the amount of companies versus how much we're transacting as well, and putting that against how the roadmap was sort of initially set out. So we're doing really well. Very excited about it. So. Let's see here. Are you working with any other companies with FPP? Right now, that project with SAP is a long-term project. We just met with a company this past week, and it's a shipping solution that makes complete sense for them. And layering on the technology of fraud prevention just makes sense. You just can basically still use the modular approach. You're still creating the documents, attaching sensors to the actual shipments themselves and providing data to the platform that way, and then layering on the business rules of fraud prevention. So when I say it's a long-term project with SAP, it'll be later this year that will be SAP certified once we're complete with the Conovation project, and then we go to the go-to-market team with SAP as well. So we're not looking for that to be by the end of Q1 by any means, not Q2. This is going to be a Q3, Q4 go-to-market team project with SAP specifically. So great question there. And if people don't know, SAP is the world's #1 leading ERP. All the major companies in the world are using SAP. There's other great ERPs out there as well, that we can also connect to through our interoperability with our platform, whether it's Oracle or Microsoft Dynamics, so on and so forth. But yes, it is a long-term project with SAP and this fraud prevention protocol implementation. So how close are we with knowing the tokenomics? The tokenomics, we need the regulations to be clear. I cannot stress that enough. Until the regulations are clear, we cannot set out tokenomics and promise something that regulations might, force us to alter, right? So right now, I don't know if you've paid attention to the news. I believe it was posted in our Telegram channel as well, that, according to the SEC commissioner, some that, see if I can find this specifically. It's the token safe harbor. That's what it was. The token safe harbor article that came out that the SEC commissioner announced last month. If something like that were to go into effect, give us a greater path to getting our regulations set, dealing with U.S. involvement as well, which is another question in this AMA as well. But really. Whether that actually becomes law is still an unknown. Nothing's set in stone, obviously, with that. It's great that they're working on it, but it's nothing that's set. So definitely something great to watch, and really do appreciate that question as well. So let's see here. Are you working in any way with IBM food traceability? We're not working specifically with food traceability right now with IBM. We are partnered with IBM with their startup, the IBM program. It allows us to use all the great technologies as well. Our platform, our positioning is middleware, right? So connecting to various technologies that IBM can offer, really fantastic. And we don't see IBM as a competitor, really. It's, as Noam's one of his great, sayings with working with different companies, is a rising tide lifts all the boats. So we're one of those boats. IBM is one of those boats as well. And as they continue to grow with their, TradeLens solution and food traceability, that's going to help us down the line as well. So. Hey Dan, I often see startups, it actually says Yo Dan, but I see startups being bought up for hundreds of millions of dollars. In the event that you guys get some crazy offers and sell your baby, is there guarantees for token holders? Could the new owners issue a new token? Right now that's completely not in our focus, right? Like we are like buried in building and growing and so on and so forth. Now being offered hundreds of millions of dollars, that does sound fantastic. It's something that, down the line, if we have that in front of us, we have to make some decisions. And, right now, it's not something that we're even focusing on, as I mentioned. So until we get to that point, it really doesn't make any sense to give promises about what would happen in that scenario, guarantees regarding issuing new tokens and so on and so forth. We can't necessarily, make up some sort of fictitious scenario and say exactly what we would do in that fictitious scenario. So, I do appreciate the question, but it's not even something we're considering right now. So, can you create a dashboard to show up the amount of NDAs, transactions used? I did kind of talk about this before at the beginning of the AMA. I don't think that a dashboard with NDAs is something that we should do. But I think down the line, something like a user sort of thing, it would be fantastic as well. So, and I will give you a little bit of a hint as well that we do have in the works an update to the website and a new update to some more content and information that I know that we're excited to release as well. So, now next question here. Is there already revenue? Yes, as I mentioned, we are, obviously billing and collecting revenue. We need to collect more, though, of course. That is part of our whole growth phase of the company. So, talks to IDEX, open MRPH with U.S. customers. That that goes back to that the SEC commissioners token safe harbor thing that we're keeping a close eye on. Once again, keep a close eye on that. It's fantastic that they're looking at that. It's something that can go into effect would right away leads to a path, with more U.S. involvement as well. So, how the adoption of MRPH is interest growing for MRPH for companies? Yes, definitely. We have companies writing in directly to through the website. Contact us. Whether it's companies involved in import-export and industrial companies, companies in logistics themselves, running companies some of the biggest projects in the world right now. So it really is a fantastic thing to be able to show the value that we provide for these major enterprises. That also provide that value to companies of parallel size or even smaller size as well. So I'm loving the direction we're headed, guys. Any supply chain events this year? Most definitely. Right now, Carl and Ben are actually traveling across Argentina. Ben just had a speaking event as a part of the Florida Blockchain Association event. We're now part of the Blockchain Association, which Carl's an advisor as a part of that association. There was a presentation that John Trask gave as well. John Trask, one of our great partners with Blockchain Guru, that was in Africa. He traveled throughout all of Africa, showing some fantastic stuff to them. Very excited about that. Now, for myself, I actually do miss speaking. I've taken a little bit of time from traveling. I do have some health issues in my family, so I'm just staying local right now and trying to be there for my family. Know him as well. His family has recently grown, so he as well is needed at his homestead and staying local as well. Around the Southern Ontario area. So tons of events coming up, but for the short term, myself and Noam will be staying put. But yes, we have the team traveling around, and we will do some stuff later in the year, most definitely. So. Exploring other blockchains to make MRPH interoperable, Cosmos, Tezos, etc. These are would have to be a client-based request. So if we requested to connect to the Tezos blockchain, then most definitely it's something we can do. It's our whole middleware positioning, using our interoperable sort of like view right from the start of this platform, right? So connecting to Cosmos and Tezos hasn't come up quite yet, but it's definitely something we can do down the line. So. How far was your platform from becoming ready for major enterprises? Depends on what you're asking when it comes to ready. Functionalities are ready, of course. Actually, this question might be to do millions of transactions per day. I think it's actually a scalability question. So this goes back, to our position as middleware and our strength with interoperability. So being able to connect to other chains, other platforms, other ERPs. We have lots of plans when it comes to scalability. And if that is your concern, then it really shouldn't be a concern because the sky's the limit when it comes to transacting through the platform. So definitely, that's been one of the, heavy focuses that we've had right from the beginning of, development. So really not a concern on our end. So is it right to say that customers need to know about the MRPH token itself? Yes, when you say don't need to know about it, it's still something that's readily available for them to look up and know about. So, but when it comes to onboarding companies, we're not going to force companies to hold tokens and set up their own wallets and private keys and so on and so forth. So yes, correct. That would be all in the back end. And companies can go on, transact, be billed in their local currency. And still on the back end would be where the MRPH would be used. So correct, basically, yes. What is the ideal customer for Morpheus.Network? Given experience with multiple types of pilots so far, as a certain sweet spot use case. There's a ton of amazing use cases. As you can see, whether it's a document handling system, it's storage and sharing. There's tons of disorganization right now with enterprises when it comes to documents specifically, especially when you have multiple parties within an enterprise and you have other companies involved within the supply chain as well. And these documents get emailed all around. And what ends up happening is, one person or a group of people have to sift through these documents, pull up the attachments, make sure they're the right documents. And if they're not, they have to manually reach back to these people. So it's all these documents are sent all over the place, and there's copies of it all over the place as well. So a blockchain-based solution, to set up these documents is definitely a perfect use case. Now, another company that does not deal with certifications, doesn't deal with documents, then that would not be a good use case whatsoever. But let's say they have some high valued goods, and they don't necessarily ship a ton of individual shipments. So creating documents is, let's say, not a huge concern of theirs. But these high value goods, they need visibility. They got to know where they are at all times, the temperature, the humidity, everything about them. So that's another ideal use case, right? Now, if you have someone who's a huge exporter and they're having issues keeping up with just manually putting their documents together, document generation, another ideal use case, right? So saying specifically that there's a specific use case that we found is the best way to go, I wouldn't say that we found that, but I'd say that it's company specific. Every company has their own sort of pain point, and there are overlaps between companies who have similar pain points. Obviously, slight modifications to different platforms and different UIs can be a complete different functionality and use case. So, yeah, really, really interesting. Thank you for the question as well. So. Okay, next question here. What else can the community do to help support Morpheus Network? Would you see there's value in marketing the crypto blockchain media? Do you see there being value? Okay, you do some great videos with Crypto Rich. Love Crypto Rich. There doesn't seem to be a broader push at this point. Now, with the platform and marketing, and the community help, right? So, the companies that we're onboarding and talking to, and different stages of these sales cycles, as I mentioned, the marketing that we do with Crypto Rich necessarily, and also being pushed on, different advertising sites within the crypto sphere, don't necessarily reach these companies, right? So it's more for for the community as well as for the crypto community in general. So now our focus, as is very heavily towards sustainable revenue. That's why we're working with companies that don't necessarily care about the crypto space, and that's why with a finite amount of funds that we have for marketing, using it for the crypto space doesn't seem necessarily like the smartest way to budget your money. So, but yes, when it comes to how the community can help, I mentioned it before as well, that there's certain team members that are growing up the growth of the company when it comes to the business development team, myself and Carl and Ben and Noam and so on and so forth, and all the different ambassadors. And I mentioned how reaching out to different companies is something that you can do as a community member as well. Now, whether you're an ambassador, you're just looking to connect to network connections that you've made, let's say over decades of trust building experience with these companies, then yeah, that is something that we're looking for. This is not a comment whatsoever on how busy we are as a company. I will say that these transformations, as I mentioned before, the transformation that's now completed took over a year. Another transformation that we're working on right now. We were working on this company and finalizing the implementation for about 10 months now, and we're not necessarily close to completing it. It's going to take another year for sure. So when it comes to network partners of yours and reaching out to these companies, I'm not saying that we don't have clients we're working with, because we most definitely do. And if you approached me today with, I have 5 companies that I already implement right now, we'd have to roadmap that specifically. We'd have to schedule that. I wouldn't say no necessarily. We'd have to time it properly. So, but truth of the matter is that one company I was speaking to that there's a fantastic use case. It's a cross-border shipment that they don't want to deal with. We can automate that. We're opening up a whole new geography of sales for them, right? So it's really a huge value add. But right now they're going through an ERP implementation. The implementation is a 6-month implementation, and they're not looking to add on any new technologies such as Morpheus.Network during this implementation. That means in 6 months from now, there'll be a lot better opportunity. There'll be a lot better position, for this opportunity for us to implement this cross-border system. So when looking at your network partners, that's why, you talk to somebody and maybe 6 months from now, they still have, no opportunities whatsoever, but maybe 12 months from now, maybe 16 months from now, you don't even know. So reaching out, talking to these companies, figuring out what their pain points are, and just having those conversations. They're really interesting conversations, because people like to talk about their companies. They like to talk about what they're doing on a day-to-day, especially if your, sort of goal is to help them by optimizing what they're doing. And that's what Morpheus Network does. So, reaching out to your network partners, is definitely something that, especially in geographies that we're not in, right? So when it comes to various countries in Europe, various countries around the world where our community is located, yes, definitely reach out to your local companies, local network partners, and if at the right time, if it takes 6 months, a year, that's fine. We're still going to be here. We're still going to be implementing. We'll have even more, technology to provide ready-built systems and so on and so forth. So for the community out there, yeah, most definitely. Let's do it. Let's reach out. Let's find out what we can do. Next question here. How much of a hindrance is biz development progress? Can you see the big bad Wu flu causing? Whoa, okay. So I guess that the coronavirus, maybe when this question was written, it was not as serious of a thing as it is right now, which in Canada right now it is quite serious. They've actually canceled schools for the next 2 weeks, extended beyond March break. They've canceled a bunch of sporting events. The NBA season, the NHL season has been suspended, so on and so forth. So, but for Morpheus Network, it's business as usual for us. It hasn't really slowed down any of the implementations. If anything, we've had clients kind of say to us, what can we offer for greater traceability, that people want to know where stuff is coming from. So, it's actually opened up some sales, revenues for us, sales channels potential for us as well. When it comes to companies we're dealing with in China, China actually is, as of today, they're up over 70% up and active. They have their ports are shipping out. So as of right now, the numbers in China are also stable when it comes to the coronavirus. So we don't know really what's going to happen with growth in the United States and how far that's sort of spread and how that'll affect different companies and even institutions, bank institutions, governments, and so on and so forth that we're working with. But yeah, we were obviously just working hard and keeping our close eye on the situation as everyone else is. We don't really have a choice because all the media seems to be covering that. So, but definitely hasn't really affected us on a day-to-day. Something that is interesting that people have brought up to us is, we have all these different, connections to the platform, being able to provide data from IoT devices, whether it's geolocation, whether it's temperature, so on and so forth. And this coronavirus is now, sort of taken over everyone's mindset. So, something like a biometric sensor, taking the temperature of the person or some sort of reading from the, let's say concentration levels of, once again, I don't know too much of the coronavirus itself, but I guess that's some sort of white blood cell difference or being able to test specifically the coronavirus and be able to send a transmission to the platform, causing a trigger to notify that coronavirus has been, that this person has the coronavirus or some sort of illness or whatever it would be. So that is something that we've discussed with a couple companies, which we find very interesting. Not something that we're implementing right now by any means, but another interesting use case that definitely is something possible with the, specifically the platform. And then other follow-up, remedies could be, let's say, getting shipments of medicine out or, notifying, the proper parties to quarantine certain areas and so on and so forth. So very interesting use case, but not something we're necessarily implementing right now, but we'll see with our, close eye on the situation and what companies are asking for. And, as companies, conversations move ahead, we'll keep you guys posted on different use cases as well. So that is the last question I have on my list over here. So as always, guys, I really do appreciate these questions. I love the AMAs, letting you guys know what's going on. We're just, head down, growing and building. And if people have any questions specifically about, as I mentioned, reaching out to different, network partners and, and growing in that way as well. We're not looking for you to, necessarily push a company to accelerate to, let's implement today, but it can't hurt to get those conversations going. And if you have questions for us or the team on how to approach companies or even companies that you're talking to and have any questions, then yeah, feel free to reach out to me directly if you wish at Dan@Morpheus.Network, or to Noam, my co-founder as well, Noam@Morpheus.Network. We're also in Telegram as well. So as always, guys, who's ever watching, have a great day and thank you.